Hello, everyone. It is Joe Kimmock again in our next installment of our series, The Stories That Free Us, where we are bringing you stories from a whole bunch of different people that have been impacted by the criminal legal system. Folks that have been inside, folks that have narrowly escaped being inside, folks whose family members are inside. We know that the absolute best way to change folks' hearts and minds is to tell stories. And I'm really honored and privileged to be able to bring you the story of Eli Schmitty Connect today. If you are watching this video, please share it. The more that we can share these stories, the more, again, we can reach, the more people we can reach, the better. This mass incarceration is not going to go down easily. It's not going to go down without a fight. It's going to take lots and lots of allies, both around Broward County and around the state. So thanks for being with us. And it is my privilege to introduce to you Eli Schmitty Connect. Eli was raised here in Broward County. At the age of 17, he was arrested and charged in a number of drug offenses and direct filed as an adult. He was sentenced to 3 years in Florida State Prison as a youthful offender, followed by 3 years probation. But while inside, Eli attended and completed boot camp, which permitted him to convert the remainder of his sentence to probation after just 1 year. Once he got out, Eli attempted to support himself with a number of odd jobs, but eventually was caught selling marijuana. And his probation was violated, and he was sent back to prison for 56 months. For the first several months that Eli was inside, he did manual labor, like many folks within the system. But eventually, Eli was lucky enough to be transferred to a correctional institution that had a number of rehabilitative programs that Eli took part of. He took part of the ASUBA program through Miami-Dade College. He was able to complete a water treatment program and also attend a Toastmasters program, for which there was a club within the prison that Eli ended up becoming the president of. Near the end of his sentence, Eli qualified for a reentry program that gave him real job training in sales. So when he was released, he had a readily identifiable career path waiting for him. Today, Eli has been free for over 3 years. He has his own LLC and a very successful career. And I'm really honored to introduce to you Eli Schmitty Connect. Eli, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joe. It's it's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate everything that you're doing. So I just hope that I can share my story, and through that, maybe we can help some other people.
Yeah, that's great. So let's start with you kind of as a teenager, right? You're living in Coral Springs at the time. You're 17 years old. What was going on in your life and kind of like in your own mind that led you to get involved in drugs?
Growing up, I was basically always in and out of trouble, starting from young age. I got sent to military school. I was so bad I ran away from the military school. Like I was always trouble, but I just honestly I just didn't have any kind of confidence in myself, and I always made excuses like, oh, I can't go get this job because they won't hire me because of this or such and such, and I just got caught up in making excuses and easy money also, and just the lifestyle. And I'm not here to make excuses. I made mistakes, so I definitely was going down the wrong path from a young age, and just kind of snowballed and snowballed and snowballed until the point where I got that armed trafficking charge at 17. And so it just started, like I said, from 10, 11, 12. I started going downhill. And by the time I was 17, I was already doing all kinds of bad stuff. I wasn't even just selling drugs. That's what I got caught for.
Right. So you get caught and you get charged. When you first get arrested, you're obviously a juvenile. Walk us through the process of what your life looked like up through the time you end up taking a plea.
So, yeah, when I was 17, I caught that charge, charges. And so, since I was a juvenile, they sent me to something called the Juvenile Detention Center. And I did 21 days there. That's like the standard time for those that don't know. If you're a juvenile, you generally do 21 days unless you have like some really serious charges, or they're going to end up, sending you to a program or something like that. So, what they did is I did the 21 days, and they out. But they put me on something called home detention, which they don't have house arrest for juveniles, so they put home detention. And so I was on that for a couple months. And then the day before my 18th birthday, which was St. Patrick's Day, they had my court date and they direct filed me, charged me as an adult. And so I turned 18 in the county jail. And then I ended up getting out like a couple days later on pretrial release. And I was on house arrest for about 10 months, just basically trying to make a deal with them, because the charge were like minimum mandatory 10 years for armed trafficking. I don't know if that's still law, but that was what it was back then. So eventually, over that 10-month period of time, my lawyer got it down to, I pled out to trafficking of MDMA, possession of cocaine, possession of cannabis, and possession of ketamine. And I got sentenced to 3 years in prison, 3 years on probation. So that's the maximum sentence you can get as a YO under YO guidelines is a 6-year sentence. So basically, I got the max sentence just broken down, half and half. And through that, I ended up going to YO prison, which for those that don't know is youthful offender prisons. For everybody that's like 23 and under, they all go to these certain prisons. And so you could be with, a 16-year-old who has 20 years in there, and they don't really care about anything. So yeah, I ended up going to Indian River because I wasn't 19 yet, I was still 18. So everybody that's under 19 goes to a prison then called Indian River. So I did that. And then when I turned 19, they sent me to another place called Lancaster. And then eventually I qualified for the boot camp program because my charges were considered nonviolent because they're just drug offenses. And through that, I completed a 4-month boot camp program. And that was kind of like, it was tough, but everything in YO military based. And you went to boot camp, you were already doing like PT in the morning and yes sir, no sir, marching and all that stuff anyway. So, it was hard because they're not going to want you to quit. But after completing that program, what they do is they then change the remainder of my 3-year sentence. I had 2 years left. They changed that and added it onto my probation. So when I got released, I had 5 years probation.
So when you first get arrested and they take you to the detention center, did you have any kind of inkling that it could go this route, that you could end up being charged as an adult? Did anybody explain that to you?
So my mom, and she spoke with different lawyers, and different lawyers were telling us different things. But the lawyer we go with ended up telling us like, you're probably going to end up getting direct filed because you're close. There's a serious charges and you're pretty close to 18. So chances are you're probably going to get direct filed. And so my mom liked that he was kind of upfront and honest with us, and that's why we ended up choosing him. Like he wasn't just trying to tell us a story to get our money. So she ended up choosing him, and then he just basically explained it to me. And then those 10 months I was on house arrest, those are like the longest 10 months ever because it's just literally you're just sitting there waiting. You don't know how much time you're going to get or anything like that. And so you're just waiting to go to prison basically. And so it's the worst part about everything is just not knowing what's going to happen, And then those 10 months ended up not counting for anything towards my sentence at all. It's just better than being in jail, I guess,
Yeah. So there are two parts of that story that are very, very, they happen in all the cases. One is that when kids who are in the juvenile system turn 18, the state attorney's office automatically direct files them, right? And so at that point, if you still have a felony and you're in the juvenile system and you turn 18, you get direct file. The tricky parts of that, right, is like this was done when you were a kid, when you were a juvenile. And so a lot of times kids will end up pleading guilty in juvenile court, even to cases that they didn't commit, in order to avoid kind of getting sentenced to that or getting shipped into the adult system. And then second, the house arrest part. Most folks don't understand that when they're on house arrest pretrial, they feel like that should count for something, and it counts for nothing ever. When you get sentenced to prison, that's your sentence. And so you could have been on house arrest 3 years and it wouldn't have counted it for anything. When you're sitting there on house arrest, was there were you in any kind of programs, or was anything offered to you as far as like rehabilitative programs during that time?
No, nothing. It's just basically you only get to leave 1 day a week. You get 2 hour window on Saturday. That's it. Like you go get a haircut or whatever. And then, I could windows to go apply for jobs and stuff like that. But like I said, at that time period, I already knew I was just waiting to go to prison. And I ended up actually signing up for college, but the judge didn't really care about that.
So tell us a little bit more about what boot camp was like.
Boot camp was tough. Like they make it hard for you, especially they have like each month they have different color hats. And so each month you get to move up and you get a different color hat and you get treated a little bit better, because then they got a new batch of guys that come in and now they're on them, But in boot camp, there were like they were a school for the people who didn't graduate high school and stuff, but I already had my GED, so I didn't have to do that. And then there was also, they made us do like a counseling program, like a couple times a week. And then also they made us go to church on Sunday as well. But, they just basically run you through the mud. You have to run 4 miles. You have to do a complete obstacle courses. You have to climb ropes. You have to, climb. If you do something and you get in trouble, you have to run the files with a log on your shoulder. Every time, when you go to the chow hall to eat, you have to eat every single thing on your tray. You cannot leave. If it's a mustard pack, you have to open it and suck the mustard if you don't like it, So the food there is it's not that good, and they don't give you any salt or any pepper or anything like that. And that was maybe the hardest part of boot camp, was eating that.
So then once you complete the boot camp, under Florida law, for folks that successfully complete that boot camp, the remainder of their prison sentence is converted to probation. So the good news is you get out early, right? The bad news is that you've got this longer probation sentence than you would have had. When you get out after the boot camp, did you feel like the boot camp did anything to actually prepare you to be reintegrated in society at all?
I think that they have those counseling classes. They did help, I would say. Like I said, so when I got out, I had the 5 years probation, but I did 2.5 years. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just working and just trying to survive, trying not to go back to prison, because when you get out on probation, you got to pay every month. You have to go see a probation officer every month. They might pop up. So I was just trying to keep my nose clean. I just knew I definitely didn't want to go back to prison. So, those counseling classes, I say that they probably helped mind state a little bit for a period of time. I would say so.
And so when you do get out, what do you do?
When I got out, luckily I'm one of the lucky people because I have family, So for those that don't have family, their struggle would probably be 10 times harder than mine, you know? So when I get out, like I got a job doing air conditioning for a while with my uncle. And then I didn't like that because that was tough work. And then I ended up I worked at a restaurant for a little while, and then I was doing a car wash for a little while. Then I ended up doing full circle back to doing basically air conditioning again. But I was getting like $10 an hour, and it was it was kind of iffy if I was even going to work every day or not. So I was barely making any money, and I was just struggling. And eventually, I was gave up on it, and I just ended up started selling weed on the side, trying to make a couple extra dollars, and then eventually I ended up making more money doing that than I was doing working. And so I quit that job and I just started selling again, selling weed full time basically. And I didn't have the right mindset or the right tools to go out and be able to get a job and be able to actually take care and provide for myself, rather than just $300-400 a week. You can't support yourself on that.
So eventually you get caught, right? And your probation gets revoked and you get sent back to prison for 56 months, or on a 56-month sentence. What was that like internally for you? What was that like, going back to prison?
So it was like I was like so I was depressed basically. Now that I look back at it, I was like in a hole that I couldn't get myself out of because I didn't even realize I was in that hole. But now that I look back at it, I can admit that to myself. Like I know, like I was just mad at everybody, at the world, at my parents. I just, I didn't care about anything. And so when that happened, I knew I was going to prison, obviously. So and for those that don't know, if you violate probation, it doesn't matter if let's say you have 5 years probation and you completed 4 years, 6 months, and you violate, all that goes out the window, and now you go back to the original 5 years. And so that's kind of what happened to me. I completed 3.5 years of my out of five, but when I violated, that goes out the window, and so now I got a 56-month sentence, which is basically 5 years. So I knew I was going to end up going to prison. I'm sitting in jail. I got my lawyer again, and he's basically telling me what I know, like, hey, you're going to go back to prison. So on that court date, we didn't even try to stretch it out. The state attorney or prosecutor, whatever you want to say, came over. They gave us the offer, 56 months. He came over and told me their offer, and he's like, you should probably, this is a decent offer. And I was like, I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that much time, because I was like, oh, it's just weed, but so he went and talked to her. He's like, I'll see if she added your points up right. And he went over there and she's like, oh, look, she forgot to add in the VOP. That's another 8 points. Because I don't know, in Florida, I think the whole state of Florida, they do a point system, right? Or
Yeah.
is that just in the county of Broward County?
No, all of Florida, they do a point system.
Yeah, so they keep track of your points, and that's how they decide, hey, this is the amount of time that you should be doing. So my points added up to 56 months, but they forgot to add in the points for the violation of probation, which is an additional maybe however many months for me. So when he came back and said that, I was like, I didn't have any choice. I just had to sign on the line, and it hurt me. Like I wanted to cry, but you can't. You put yourself in that situation. It hurts. You got your family in the courtroom with you, and they're crying and stuff. But it was definitely tough, man. It was really tough.
Tell us about your second journey through the prison system.
So second time, I was 23, and I got sentenced, and I went to South Florida Reception Center, which is where all the people from Miami, Broward, Palm Beach, Lee County, and the Keys, they all when you get sentenced to prison, you all go to a reception center, and then you get kind of distributed to your main camp where you're going to be doing your time at. However, some lucky people get to stay, at the reception center, or at least get to stay down south by your family. And I was one of those lucky ones. So I ended up
Let me
staying at the
cut you off.
South
Let me
Florida.
cut you off for just a second. So you told me something earlier about Broward folks, specifically about Broward folks in the South Florida Reception Center. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when you go to the reception center, Miami-Dade and Palm Beach, they both drop off their inmates on the same day. But Broward sentences so many people to prison that they have their own day 2 days a week. So that's how many people that are getting sent to prison from Broward. And also my lawyer told me my first charge, he's like, look, if you would have got caught in Miami or Palm Beach with this, you probably wouldn't go to prison. But since you're in Broward, you're going to prison. And that's what happened, you know?
Okay, so go ahead. So you end up staying there at South Florida Reception Center?
Yeah, so I ended up, they have a South unit. It's called South Florida Reception Center South unit. It's like a smaller unit outside of the main unit. And there they have, it's basically all for older people doing like long sentences, life sentences and stuff. And they have a dog program there for them and stuff like that. But there's one dorm where they have younger people, not necessarily young, but younger than like 65. And they go out on outside work squads. So I would go like Broward County, Miami Gardens, Dade DOT, Florida Highway Patrol, and we would do different jobs for all these people, whether in grass or picking up trash, or specific jobs that they had us where we cut down trees or something like that. And so when you're in prison, that's basically as good as it gets. Like, you are lucky to, like, you're so happy that you got to stay in South Florida by your family, and you get to go out into the real world, and you get to leave behind the gates. That's huge right there. And so we basically just worked all the time. You have to get up at 5 a.m, and we got to go to eat breakfast and go right to the gate and go out and work. And then where I was at, there are no programs for anybody. Basically, there's no schools, there's no trades, there's no counseling, there's none of that. So all you did was work there. And
what did they pay
so
you?
I was there for nothing.
Nothing. So you were working all day, every day, their manual labor. There wasn't even like 20 cents an hour or something?
No, nothing. No. You don't get paid anything for that job, but there are a couple jobs where you get like 20 cents an hour. But it's like if you work at like soap, like the people that make soap,
yeah,
I think they get paid. But and also the canteen man, they get like $50 a month or $25 a month, I believe. But yeah, on the work squads, you don't get paid anything. You're, like I said, we're just so happy that we even get to leave the gate. It's like we're just happy. But because otherwise, what's the alternative? To stay behind the gate, and they're going to give you a job anyway. Now you got to cut the grass on the compound. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there was no programs there. There's literally, for anybody that wanted to try to better themselves, there is nothing there to help you. But after about, I believe, 18 months, out of nowhere, just one day I woke up and they're like, hey, pack your stuff. And I'm like, caught me off guard. Like, where am I going? It was like me and like a couple, like one other guy, I think one other guy, maybe two. They ended up sending me to something called Everglades Reentry Center. And so this was like a new thing they just built. And we were the first bus ever there. And there was only like 20 of us, I believe. And so for 3 weeks, there was just us 20 at this compound. And so we first get there, they don't have anything running yet. We're basically the test group, basically. But eventually, after, they get people in there, they got counselors and stuff, they have programs there. I know they had that computer program, and I completed the wastewater treatment program. And so they have all kinds of, like, they force you to take counseling. And a lot of guys didn't like that, obviously, but it didn't matter. If you're there, you have to do that. And for the first time since I was in prison, I kind of had time just to, like, really sit there and just think and focus on myself and reflect. And then I had counselors and people to talk to, who could also help me find different perspectives, see things that I couldn't necessarily see myself. I never really had talked to about, oh, I went through this as a kid, or I was, things that you can't just talk to anybody about.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. And even if you don't want to hear that stuff, you're one of those that, like I was at first, I was stuck in my ways. I was what I was, but eventually I wanted to change. And I just, it was so hard to change because there wasn't any tools for me to help me. But once I went there, I went in there with an open mind, like, I'm just going to try to make the best out of this. And eventually they got everything up and running. And I entered, like, I completed their counseling program. I ended up getting into the super program you spoke about earlier, which is basically of Dr. Brantley and Professor Carlo. They're both teachers at Miami-Dade College. They started the program ASUBA. It's the word abuse spelled backwards. And their little slogan is "Women Reversing the Effects of Abuse." So that's basically a group setting where it's like all of us, all mates, are having group meetings, and they talk to us about different forms of abuse that we may not even have noticed. Like self-abuse, that was one of my favorite topics, because there's so many things that you do to yourself, especially me at least, where I didn't even notice that's abusing my, I'm self-destructive. Like, I did before I went to prison, I didn't have a license, I didn't have a car, I was literally, anything wrong you can do, I was doing it, drinking, whatever. But so through that helped me also kind of change my perspective on a lot of things. And then I eventually became like, I was one of the few people who ended up being able to do that program twice, because I came back as like a facilitator the second time. So that was really good for me, because that gave me even a different perspective, because I was kind of helping the group go through what I went through, like that. And you'd be surprised, they bring in 5 students who are all aspiring either like police officers or correctional officers or state attorneys or whatever the case may be. And it allows them to sit and talk with us, gives them a different on what we're like, because there are a lot of stigmas out there about inmates, we're animals, we're killers, we're crazy, the stuff you see on TV, whatever. But in reality, there are those people. Don't get it twisted. There are that group of people, but majority of people in there just made a mistake, or they may have had a bad set of cards dealt to them, or they want to change. They just don't know how. Some people don't have any family. That's, like I said, that's the hardest thing. Imagine doing 5, 10, 15 years. The system didn't give you anything to help you, and then you get out with nothing and you have no family help. That's incredibly hard. You have to live at a shelter or something. Um, but so I did that program, and then I also ended up getting in, like you said, the Toastmasters program, which is, for those that don't know, is a public speaking group. And every president except for one, I believe, has been in Toastmasters. And in there, it's called Gavel Club. And so I ended up doing that, and I was terrified to speak in front of people, but I just wanted to challenge myself. And eventually, I ended up becoming the president of the Gavel Club, and we would do different things. Like, we would do every week, we would have do speeches, and we'd have like a word of the day. You have to try to incorporate whatever the word was in your speech, and things like that. But we also ended up speaking to kids from 5,000 role models, so they would bring in kids that on the cusp, kids like that may end up, they're in the ghetto or whatever, and bring them in, and it was my job to facilitate that, which I really, really liked that, because I got to pick, hey, this six group of guys, or this six guys are going to speak to these kids, and we would put on, everyone would tell their own story, and we really try to connect with the kids just so that they don't have to go through the same thing that we went through. And even if you can kind of change one kid's mind, at least you did that,
Right.
So that was awesome. I really that. And then I completed the wastewater treatment program, which I ended up not pursuing that, but if I needed to, if I wanted to, I could have. I passed the state exam and everything, and that's a good career. Like, you get out making $20, 20 something hour, goes up from there as you get more certifications and experience. So you could actually support yourself and a family down the road with that. So that was really good. But after that, I was there for 18 months also. And then after that, I ended up going to something called work release, which, for those that don't know, is low custody inmates. They're allowed to go to basically this camp and get real jobs, have a cell phone, wear street clothes, go out into the world, go to Walmart, buy food and stuff. And when I was there, I ended up getting a job selling dental insurance. And through that job, I gained a lot of confidence in myself, and I gained experience, obviously, doing that. And I actually went
So
from the
you were doing
bottom
that
all
while
the way
you
up
were
to
still you were doing that while you were still technically in prison,
correct.
selling dental
So
insurance. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Go ahead.
yeah, we're still in prison, but we're allowed to have real jobs. A lot of guys, they'll go work at like warehouses and stuff like that. But for those of us who could make it there, that was the best option. You make actually pretty decent money while you're still incarcerated. But they take when you get your pay, you have to turn every paycheck in, and they take 65% goes to the state, 10% goes to savings, and then 10% goes to, like, if you have any court fees that you owe or things like that. And then the remainder you're allowed to draw, which you're allowed to draw, like, I think $100 a week and have that on you. So you can go shopping or buy food and stuff. And you have one day a week you can go to Walmart and buy food. So and you actually have a cell phone. But when I was working there, and you get furloughs, eventually you get furloughs, and you get to go home with your family for 8 hours and stuff like that. So that's really cool too. But yeah, they take 65% of your paycheck. I guess you got to consider that rent, basically. But I was working there. I ended up working my way up to the top of that office, and I was making really good money. And then when I got out, I ended up getting where my dad was working, selling basically testosterone, HGH. I work at an anti-aging clinic. And it's a really good job. I was able to get my own place 3 months after I got out. I got my own place. Eventually, I got a car, I got my driver's license, I got my passport. Like I said, I started the LLC. Basically everything. I got my credit. Finally, that was the only good thing I did when I was younger. I never messed up my driver's license, and I never messed up my credit. But so eventually I ended up, now I'm 3 years out and doing great. I have everything I never had. I have a good mindset. And I really, really believe that without those programs that I completed, like, I would not be here being the same person. Without that work experience, I would not be here being the same person. So it was really, really great that I got the opportunity to help myself be better. The first step is you have to want to help yourself. You have to want to change, but then you need to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that your experience was is the norm for folks in prison, or more of an exception?
Definitely more of an exception. So like violent charges or burglaries or things like that, they're not allowed to go to work release. You can only have non-violent offenses and go to work release. And you can only a certain amount of time. You have to be under like 14 months or something to go there. So, and then the Everglades reentry, that was like a brand new thing. Like, I don't even know how many of those there are in the state of Florida. Yeah. And I don't even think it's still up and running, actually. I think that the funding got cut or it failed basically. And so I don't even think anyone else even gets to take advantage of that really. And then also in the state of Florida, it's illegal for them to like put college courses in state prisons. So that's not even an option either.
What do you think prosecutors or other kind of criminal justice decision makers, with everything that you've been through, what do you think those types of folks should know or understand that maybe they don't?
What I really wish could happen, I know this is kind of far-fetched, but I wish that they could people to jail or prison. I wish that they could spend just a week in there or something, you know, like just to see how it is and what you're sending somebody to. And the heart,
I can tell you it's not far-fetched. I can tell you there is a very small program through the 4th District Court of Appeals that takes prosecutors and public defenders and some other decision makers and does a tour of the prison system. But we didn't spend a night there, and we just went. Yeah. You know, we popped in, did the little sanitized tour, and then popped out. But there are places around the country where prosecutors are, elected district attorneys are requiring their assistants to spend a weekend in jail or spend a weekend in prison so they can see what it looks like. Why do you think that's important?
Because it would allow them to really see where they're sending somebody to, and it's not just like a name on a paper, or it almost feels like they can get detached from that. You know, a judge has been doing this so long, they've been handing out so many years, it's not even like real to them. However, just like when you go like in the Army, they have to, guess what? They have to get tear gassed, or I believe police officers have to get pepper sprayed. So you have to know what that feels like before you do it to somebody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why I believe that I wish that could happen. But the hardest part of prison is it's not like the hardest being away from your family, like not having that contact. You're around a bunch of strangers, people you don't trust, you can't trust. It's just that's the hardest part. It's not the work or the food's terrible and all of that, yeah, but it's just being away from the people that you love and that love you. That's the hardest part. And then judges, some of them can get detached, and it's not a game. Like, we're real people. What I would want all the people who sentence people to understand is that we're people. Like, we're not a statistic. I know you guys, we're statistics to you guys, a lot of people, but we're not. We're people, and don't give up on us and don't over sentence us, because all that does is just get us caught up in the cycle. And that cycle is hard to break. And it's shown already over the last 30 years that this just the way that we're doing things, it isn't working. Incarceration rate is only going up. It's not going down. I think people are starting to finally realize that that's not working, and that we need to change up and do something different. And instead of trying to, it shouldn't be being punished, it should be rehabilitation,
Well, I think that is a very, very inspiring and well articulated way to end our conversation. Eli, I want to thank you so much. This story is inspiring to me, and I know anybody that hears it, it's inspiring too. You spent a lot of time in prison that was essentially dead time, right? Time where you weren't able to um, where you either were working too hard to have any time for yourself, or they weren't giving you any these really profound and good programs that ended up helping you turn your life around. We know that rehabilitation is a good investment. We know it. We know that reentry programs is an extraordinarily good investment. But we don't do it. We don't spend those resources on that. And I think your story is a really powerful testament to how important it is. You're wearing the Our Vote T-shirt, right? Anybody else that's watching, you are registered to vote, correct?
I actually went up to the rally in Tallahassee to get Amendment 4. So that's something else that I did since I've been out. And I just want to say that, we're, like I said earlier, we're people. So when we get released, we're coming back into the communities. We're your neighbors. A lot of times we're your family members. We're your coworkers. We're your, we purchase things from your companies. Like, it just makes sense for your tax dollars that you're paying anyways. Would you rather those tax dollars go to keeping somebody alive, get out and do the same thing, and then you have to pay again, or would you rather invest in somebody, give somebody a chance that they may have never had, and when they get, can actually give back?
Exactly right. Well, thank you so much, Eli. Thanks for being a part of this. To everybody watching, if you could please share this video, the more folks that get to hear Eli's story, the more that we can, promote real change in our system. Thank you so much, Eli.